Psalms 108 through 110. Well, the number of times that a New Testament writer will go back and use an Old Testament verse to prove his point, usually a direct quotation or something like that, is about 300 times. Well, less than 300, somewhere between 275 to 300 times. However, what happens much more commonly, and this is about 1,300 times, in 1,600 New Testament verses, the New Testament writer goes back into the Old Testament and picks up a phrase, or more importantly, an allusion or an idea that clearly is Old Testament, but then he uses it in a New Testament concept or in a New Testament teaching or something like that. Well, all to say that of all the passages of the Old Testament that are picked up and brought into the New, Psalm 110 is by far the most common. There are 5 times that the New Testament writer directly quotes Psalm 110, 3 times by Jesus in one story. At the beginning of the book of Acts and the beginning of Hebrews, the writer uses Psalm 110. It seems to kind of set the stage for the entire book. So far beyond the 5 direct quotations, of course, there are numerous, and it's hard to count, in fact, as you'll see coming up here as we draw out Psalm 110. The number of times this idea is used in the New Testament is really hard to know because it is just so important to the story as we go. Well, the actual text of Psalm 110, and I'll just read verses 1 and 2, are pretty straightforward. It goes like this. This is a psalm of David. So David is the watcher of this story. He's a person in the story, but he's the one that's telling us what he's seeing. The Lord, and that's Yahweh, Yahweh said to my Lord. Now again, that word Adonai in Hebrew is a very common word. It can be used of spirits or humans. It just means master or ruler. It can be used of humans or spirits. So notice David so far is saying, Yahweh is saying to David's Adonai, someone who is not Yahweh and who is not David. Okay. What does he say? Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies. So this Adonai has enemies that he will rule, and let's say rule over. Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. It's as though he can put his feet on them because he has conquered them. And then verse 2, the Lord, that's Yahweh, shall send the rod of your strength out of Zion, rule. So notice he's also going to rule, but this time he's ruling for someone. Rule in the midst of your enemies. So the idea is, like I say, rather straightforward. David the onlooker hears Yahweh saying to David's master, no name, 2 things. You are going to rule over enemies while you rule for God's people. Well, a couple things to let's think through 3 ideas that, again, let's not think ahead to the New Testament. Maybe you can see why the New Testament will grab at this passage, but let's just think in terms of what David himself would have learned from this poignant story in Psalm 110. The first is an actual transfer of power. Again, Yahweh's the king. He is the ruler. He's the creator, so he can do as he pleases. David knows that. But what David is noticing, and really for the first time in such clarity, David is noticing that Yahweh is giving authority to someone else. Let me read from Psalm 110, just the last, verses 5 and 6. The Lord, this is Adonai. Adonai is at your right hand. He shall execute kings in the day of his wrath. He shall judge among the nations. He shall fill the places with dead bodies. He shall execute the heads of many countries. The roles or the ideas that Yahweh is known to fulfill are now being given to someone else. He will do this, he will do this, and so forth. So it's an actual transference of authority to someone beyond himself. There are some fascinating Egyptian parallels to this, and I think the Old Testament writer would have at least probably known of them. Even across the ancient Near East, the idea of someone, of a king, putting someone at his right hand, usually the firstborn son. The idea of that is that there will be a co-regency, in a sense, until the king passes off the scene and he literally transfers his power to the one sitting at his right hand. That's what David would have caught from this idea here. Yahweh is totally in charge, but he's giving his authority to someone else. The second idea that would have been clear to David is that this Adonai is not him. Now, everything we've heard before is that Yahweh has made David, 2 Samuel 7. He has made David the king of Israel. David would be the one to rule. But David is now noticing this is far beyond himself, because this is someone who, number one, is not him, and secondly, this role will continue far beyond the lifetime of David. Psalm 89, 27 and 28. I will make my firstborn the highest of the kings of the earth. My mercy I will keep with him forever, and my covenant shall stand firm with him. So if it's forever, it can't be David. And I think David would have known that. So this role is created to be filled in over time. I don't think David would have known names, maybe his own son Solomon. In fact, this is interesting. In 1 Chronicles 28:5, it will say this about Solomon, and of all my sons, for the Lord has given me many sons, this is David speaking, he has chosen my son Solomon to sit on the throne of the kingdom of Yahweh. That's the first time that kind of language is actually used. David says, my son is sitting on the throne of Yahweh. Yahweh's not on his own throne anymore. Someone else is, and David claims it's Solomon. In 29:23, 1 Chronicles, then Solomon sat on the throne of Yahweh as king instead of David his father. So as David gives up the throne to his own son, I think David would have seen this idea starting to come to pass. But David would have known when Solomon dies, that role will be filled in by someone else. The last thing that I'll say is that this word Adonai, again, it means master or Lord. We need to start adding up in at least our mental list of ideas that will fill this concept here, this role or this slot to be filled in forever. Adonai is one of them. Son is another. Anointed, we've already noticed that word, is another. David, will actually have the role or the name David given to this role in a later prophet, as though it's not David, but it's someone who fills in this role of David. And another interesting one coming up will be servant. Servant is almost opposite of king, but there will be a servant of Yahweh who seems to fill this role. Well, all to say that when we're looking for direct prophecies coming out of the Old Testament to be fulfilled, especially in the person of Jesus, it will be sometimes hard to find them, or even I would call them rare. Direct messianic prophecies seem to be rare. However, what's our purpose at this point is to listen to the story being created, and clearly here we have something that is very important for the story.